All right, Swain, this is your intro. Take it away, baby.
Okay.
Bones, I'm gonna be honest. I don't like what he's doing.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening.
Oh no.
This is not his A material.
It's almost the opposite of an intro.
No. Let me
Should
just
we
play with
bail
the
him
stuff on
out?
my desk here. That'll make for some good content.
I'm worried it's not gonna make for good content.
There's no way. It's almost the
I'm
opposite
gonna
of content.
shuffle this around. Put this.
What is
put
this?
This
You
up
keep
here.
This. What are you talking about?
Why use physical objects on an audio format?
Should we bail him out with some great A intro?
You guys want me to play some Destiny? Is that what? Will that make you happy? Do you want me to dance for you? I'll dance.
Hey.
Dancing. Dancing for you
I'm
guys.
dancing now too. I'm dancing. Is it good? Do you like my dancing? Bones, help us.
I'm leaving. Guys, what if we just play the audio from that video of the dog farting and the cat puking right after it? Call that the intro. Sync it up, Andrew, then play the music. Here we go.
That's funny. When Bones, before you were here, I started off our conversation with several fake farts.
Look, it's a timeless, endless, always applicable, universally understood. You know, it feels, it's a childlike sense of comedy. It's a little gross, but not too gross. Doesn't really offend anyone specifically. Sort of offends all people universally. I was hoping you just keep making fart sounds while I do this speech.
I think I was wondering if this is going to be one of those times where we delete everything we've recorded so far and start over, but I'm sensing it's not.
I think those times are behind us.
Welcome to Crucible Radio, everyone. It's a show for all things Destiny 2 PvP, and we are here. We are your hosts.
We also need your intro bits.
Yeah.
And your credit card number and the special number on the back.
For science.
Ask your mom. No, thank you for joining us on the show. This week, we've got a fantastic interview with An00bis and Enigma. They run Rekt, and they are the tournament scene in the UK. They are crushing it and doing it a little bit differently. They're doing it their own way.
And they're sound asleep while we say this right now because we woke them up so early to do this.
Yeah. But you've got us here. I'm assuming this is the first ever episode of Crucible Radio you've listened to, and you're probably wondering who's making those great fart noises. Well, my name is Birds, and I'm here with lesser fart noise maker, Swain, and the other guy. Welcome to the show. Guys, we had...
Wait, the bit last week was that it was Birds' podcast. I can't do that 2 weeks in a row. Welcome to the Bone Town. Podcast hosted exclusively by Bones, and we talk about the Bone Town. It's not that kind of Bone Town. It's literally bones, dog bones. They chew on them, then they make farts.
Are they dead dogs? What is happening?
No, not the bones of dogs, like bones that dogs have and chew on. It's not that kind. This isn't a dog.
What are those bones?
I don't know. Are they real bones? I don't know. You buy them.
How can you be the mayor of Bone Town and not know what the bones are made of?
I didn't say I was the mayor. I said I was the host.
This is the kind of checked out leadership we can only expect from the incumbent mayor of Bone Town, which is why I'm announcing my candidacy for mayor of Bone Town in a special runoff election. And we will be enacting our vendetta against the previous mayor of Bone Town.
This guy doesn't know that Bone Town is an incredible debt. It's home to a bunch of ruffians.
Oh, no.
He's going to hate it. I'm out of here.
I never wanted this responsibility. Guys.
We got we got a little bit of news and for the podcast and a little bit of news for Destiny. Let's talk about that instead of bones and farts.
Yeah, we have news for the podcast, but we have not set ourselves up to promote it well. So I'm excited to see how this goes.
Birds is prepared. I'm not.
Yeah.
We're going to really salvage this next segment and win everyone back. I like to think that everyone who listens to the show does so at 5:30 in the morning. And
that's when we're the funniest.
Fine. Yeah, that's the best way to enjoy us. I really enjoyed how this news unfolded today. What was that? It was that first tweet from Jason Schreier. And I thought to myself, okay. A whole bunch of eyes emojis, whole bunch of something going on. And then we got the next tweet about, can't say anything yet, but they're having a meeting, some news coming soon. And I thought, okay. And then we find out that Bungie and Activision are getting a divorce.
Wah, wah.
When they split, Activision gets Birds and Bungie gets me, Swain. And then every other weekend, they get Buns.
Yeah, it's tough on them. It is, but we wanted to... We really wanted to keep things predictable.
I hear they put Deej in charge. He's now the mayor of Bone Town.
Wow, interesting turn. I wonder what he's going to do with all that bone debt.
No, it's not sad. It's probably good. Bungie is now the sole owner of their
indie studio.
Yeah, my favorite indie game, Destiny, is now in full control by Bungie. And we now get to blame all bad things on Activision and assume all negative aspects were because of them. And it's going to be perfect now, right? That's how this works. I understand business.
I believe it. Well, I mean, we know blessedly little right now. I think we've got a pretty good sense of why they got into business with Activision, right? They're
capital.
Yeah, they're launching a major game. They're taking a huge risk developing something for years. They need to launch it. They need, they need platforms. They need marketing. They need all these things. And now it's broken off. So this is interesting. So
I think the biggest tell, we don't have, like you said, we don't have any real inside information about this. No one really knows the level of Activision's involvement. But my biggest takeaway is seeing the excitement from the employees that work there. They're not mad or they're not upset with Activision. It's more so this is a great opportunity for them to kind of do everything their way. No influence at all, just kind of do their best work and see how that translates. That's what gets me excited, seeing the employees excited. Apparently they cheered.
Yeah, I mean, we got this tweet from Jason Schreier that says, at today's meeting announcing the news, Bungie staff cheered loudly.
Wow.
Can't overemphasize how happy they are, not just to get away from Activision, but to have a game that they now own completely. And he mentions, imagine a Destiny free from Activision's restrictive annualized schedule. I think that's interesting, right? Activision is a very, very large publisher. There's a couple known formulas that work for this kind of thing. And what we've seen over the past, really over Destiny 2, is Bungie figuring out different models for how this game grows over time. We had the launch of D2. That vanilla sure had an impression. We had a couple sort of pretty standard quarterly expansions with Curse of Osiris and Warmind. When Forsaken dropped, things sort of changed fundamentally. And now that we've really embraced this season, what we're seeing is a different kind of model to releasing expansions, to releasing content. And I wonder, why Activision said this is no longer a partnership that's working for us. Is it just that unpredictability around, trust us, this is what the Destiny community wants. We've tried to do it the other way. This gets results. People are finally enjoying this. And Activision saying, yeah, cool, not for us. Or Was it a collaboration to kind of figure out this place that we got to? And there's some other reason that Activision is bouncing? Unclear.
It's also like I do remember I followed this game since before it came out, honestly, since mid 2013. And one of the big things back then was this like leaked infographic of the schedule. Is this whole big 10-year contract, right? Like that's what they always said, 10 years. And it outlaid the big releases, the comets, as we used to call it. And I know that stuff changes, and that was literally 5 years ago, but it does make me wonder what the future of Destiny means now that they're not beholden to whatever that thing was or however it's changed. And not that I necessarily want or expect or hope that Destiny lasts another 20 years or anything like that, but it is kind of exciting to just think that like the future could hold any number of things and they can truly do whatever they want. And obviously they're going to make the same decisions because they have to, make money, pay employees and have things work and appease an audience. But it is kind of wild to know that just the future is whatever. And it's up in the air. And we know that the coming year they've laid out the annual pass thing. We're still going to get the Season of the Drifter, that kind of thing. We're still going to do Penumbra, whatever that's called. But right around when we get one of those big year releases, who knows? Could be something exciting. So it's just nice to know that the future, we're just sort of like they're steering the ship now. It's kind of exciting.
I just wonder. You have to assume Activision is a very large publicly traded company, and I think one of the kind of most businessy bits of behind the curtain that we've gotten to see with Destiny is hearing the Activision quarterly earnings calls. And, to hear, Destiny isn't performing, it's not hitting the targets that we set. That's a very multinational corporation approach to making money in games. And nothing wrong with it. It gets results. But I think Destiny is kind of at its most interesting when the studio is able to take a gamble. I mean, they've taken a lot of them.
Yeah, there's a little bit of like risk management within that. Like, you don't go swing for the fences on something crazy when you have to hit those metrics.
Yep. I mean, and there's just a big difference between saying we're going to make a game that's got staying power to really evolve over 10 years versus we're going to make a game that's going to make money every quarter for 10 years. I mean, I hope they do. I hope they figure it out. But past that, we don't really know. We know that, what did they say? They did release an announcement on Bungie.net where they've made clear that the game is going to remain on Battle.net. It's going to stay on Blizzard systems. And that past that, we don't really know.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I obviously am excited, but you'll probably see less of things that we've gotten used to, like the big marketing pushes for certain things. No more reveal events for hundreds in an airplane hangar, probably.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah,
could do it in my house.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll host.
There you go. Yeah, get him on the horn.
Okay, Deej, you can come, and that's it. It's just me and Deej.
Obviously, we're not going to address it with them next week when we have some Bungie employees on the show.
Oh, God. I'm excited to talk to some Bungie guys, but I can't imagine that someone's going to be like, why didn't they talk about this? Look, guys, we don't know anything. And they're not going to talk to us about that.
Nah. They're not going to be like, oh, thank God.
Can we just say that, like, we'll go ahead and try, and if you don't hear it on the show, you can just assume it didn't work. But we tried. Excuse me, Mr. Bungie, how much money do you think you're going to be making now? And is it good and more money than it was? And
is it that good more money?
I got to talk to my accountant about that.
I'm just excited that it's actually going to be Mr. Bungie this time, not Noosk, not Hamrick.
I know.
Just Mr. Bungie himself.
They've been lowballing us, but finally, Mr. Bungie Jones. Everyone calls him Mr. Bungie. Don't realize it's his first name. It's like It's like Mr. Peanut. Nobody knows his name is Mr. Peanut Jones.
Mr. Peanut, that coward.
Yeah, fuck that peanut. Well, we've got some exciting
You almost said nose. You almost said exciting nose.
Ooh,
Episode 186. You said nose.
I was gonna say I just posted a little old message to Engineer Andrew that says the first 5 minutes of this ep are a slap happy mess. Give them some tightening. We'll see how he does. But something tells me the energy that we're taking in this episode is just you can't edit it out. We've got some exciting Crucible radio news. Guys, can I talk about this for just a sec?
Yes.
Yeah. You're very well prepared. You're more prepared than me and Bones for this. So.
I'm going to go to the bathroom. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks, buddy.
Yep.
Leave the door open.
Uh-huh.
I like to know. Look, for some time now, we have been recording another podcast.
Ooh.
It is called Real World Crucible Radio. It took us 30 seconds to think of that name. But if you've ever thought to yourself, hey, you know what? Those guys, that Birds, the Swain, the other guy, they're great. And I like hanging out with them every week. But one episode a week is not enough. I need more. And also, it's like they only ever talk about Destiny. I wish there was more. Well, I have got such good news for you. This show, Real World Crucible Radio, is about life, the universe, and everything except for Destiny. We don't even say the name of it. We'll talk about gaming a little bit, but it's really a peek behind the curtain into how we make the show, our lives, featuring guest appearances from our significant others, who you may remember from our last Guardian Con episode. And really just covering all that other stuff that doesn't necessarily fit into this show. It's a ton of fun. It comes out twice a month, and it's available only on, here it comes, patreon.com/Crucible Radio. I want lots of people to listen to this show because they're a blast.
It's great.
It is honestly very enjoyable. I personally enjoy listening to it more than I enjoy listening to Crucible Radio these days. And I think you might enjoy it. So we are this week putting out Real World Crucible Radio for free. So you can go to patreon.com/Crucible Radio and listen to it. This is our first episode for the month of January. We'd ask that if you enjoy it and you're interested, consider supporting us on Patreon. It's $1 an episode.
Yeah, we kind of switched things up to focus our Patreon a little bit more on producing these extra episodes. And
it's a good thing that we're making here.
Yeah, we feel like every episode is a blast, and we want to share it with more people. So $1 an episode, 2 a month, that's $2.
Yeah, I don't know how you could,
or something like that.
Like literally, you can't make it any cheaper on Patreon, and we're not going to jack up the price. It's $1 an episode. If you want to support the show, well, we've got some digital art. We've got our exclusive members lounge in the Discord. We've got discounts on Crucible Radio merchandise.
There's levels to it, but the entry is very, very low.
And your support helps keep this show running. We don't really see any of it. This goes to Engineer Andrew. This goes to Video Editor Nick. This goes to Dan and Otter and Grim and hosting costs and all the things it takes to keep this show running. And lets us pay them for the work that they do. So we hope you'll consider it. Check it out. Patreon.com/Crucible Radio. And go check out this most recent episode. What we talked about
New Year's resolutions.
New Year's resolutions.
And a lot about a specific scene from Winter Soldier.
Yes, featuring a guest appearance from Kelly, the one and only other Swain. Talk about that henching life. Yeah. What are these henchmen up to? We get into it. It was a fun one.
We fit a lot into that episode about resolutions. You could tell.
Yep. New Year's resolutions actually didn't factor up too high on that. It ranges. So go check it out. Hope you enjoy it. Hey, you think Bones is back?
No, he should be back. Bones, you back?
I thought I heard him pooping.
Would it be a funny bit if I just never came back from the bathroom on this episode?
I wanted to hear the sound of flushing and crying, and you keep crying and you keep flushing to try and cover up the sound.
I would say it would be fun for you to do that, but we have an ad this week that I think you should be a part of.
Oh, I think we should. Look, we're going to get right to this sexy, fun, exciting, tantalizing interview. It's actually a very fun conversation. We had a great time. But we have to just deliver one message from our sponsor this week, Casper Mattress. Woo! It's a sleep brand that continues to revolutionize its line of products to create an exceptionally comfortable sleep experience one night at a time.
Now, you guys know I've got a Casper mattress, and I love it. I sleep real good.
You know that I have one.
Yeah, Swain and Casper go together like bread and Casper. But Bonesy, could he hack it with a Casper mattress?
Yes.
I wonder. Welcome to the club.
I did it, guys.
It feels a little less exclusive now that you're here, but I hope you're getting better sleep. How is it going?
I truly am. I took the plunge. I went Casper, and it's like, it made me feel so sad about the mattress I had for so long. Like, it was serviceable, and then like side by side, I was like, oh no, what have I done to myself? But it is just, it's so comfortable. Like, I just have enough room, and like, I snore. Sorry about it. But now my girlfriend hates me less because our bed is also super comfortable. It's really cushy, but it doesn't, I don't know how to describe it. It kind of hugs you, and it feels really good. And honestly, I have been sleeping better to the point where it's like harder for me to wake up because I'm like so sound asleep. And it made me realize I wasn't hitting that deep sleep, good rest for a very long time on what I had beforehand. So it feels great.
Yeah. Who thought to put springs in a mattress? What a terrible idea.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. It's all about that foam. Look, they got the original Casper, the Wave, and the Essential. They're designed to soothe and cradle your boneses or your Swainses or
the mayor of Boneville.
Yep. Good enough for the mayor of Boneville himself. May his name be damned for 1,000 generations. Not to mention the breathable design helps you sleep cool and regulates your body temperature, and it's delivered right to your door it's just a very small box. It is surprising.
It's really crazy, actually.
You had that experience where you open it up and it just like assembles itself
like a transformer.
out of a little lump.
Yeah,
it's something.
And it said, "Bones, you are chosen to defend the galaxy from Megatron." And that was a whole other thing. We can't get into it.
I'm guessing that's not true. I don't think it said that. But you never know.
You sure?
You can find out. Yeah, I'm fairly certain.
Find out if your Casper has a Megatron in it with Casper's 100-night risk-free sleep on it trial. After all, you spend 1/3 of your life sleeping. You should be comfortable. So get $50 towards select mattresses today by visiting Casper.com/Crucible and using code Crucible at checkout. Seriously,
this is the biggest upgrade to my life I'll have in 5 years. It was wonderful.
Crucible, CRUCIBLE, $50 off your mattress purchase. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, guys. Let's get to this interview with two fellas who have their shit way more together than us, despite it being the middle of the night for them.
Oh, we're going to shift so hard into like a real professional zone. It's going to be great.
That's my interviewer voice.
I'm curious. It's my Birds impression.
Musical break.
Here we go, another show fade. Turn around and shove back in my face.
Folks, we've got music this week from Sean Currlin. You can check him out at seancurrlin.bandcamp.com. It's Currlin with 2 R's and no G. Good stuff. It's impeccable. It's very well done. Very well done. If you're a musician and you'd like to hear your music on Crucible Radio, well, I would too. It starts when you send an email to crucibleradio@gmail.com.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. We've got 2 guests this week. We haven't had a crew this size in a while. There's all 5 of us in the channel right now, but it's about to get fun. It's been a long time coming. These guys do a lot of work for this community, especially overseas, because, hey, we're in America, but these guys aren't. Please welcome to the show, An00bis and Enigma from Get Rekt. What's up, guys?
Yeah, good, man. Thanks for having us.
Welcome. It is nice and early for you guys, right? It's like the rooster's out yet?
Yeah.
Not quite, no. We've beaten them up this morning, so it's 4:20 a.m. So thank you very much for
Wow.
the invite.
Well, thank you for waking up and joining us. It's always fun scheduling these things. At least we have the internet to make it possible, though. So why don't you guys start today with each telling the crew and the audience a little bit about yourselves and what you do in the Destiny world.
So I'm An00bis, so I'm the founder of Get Rekt. So we've been running Destiny gaming festivals and tournaments since 2016. So our first one was a massive LAN event in the kind of peak of Destiny 1. So we had 140 people in a LAN party, essentially, which was a great start. And I used to be the PvP Legends European director. So I used to work with Farcog and delivering the EU side of his tournaments too.
I am Enigma. I'm a player in these events, and I actually originally met An00bis. He was looking kind of shifty outside of Destiny in the pub event, and handed me one of his business cards, and I turned up to some of his events. I'd never really organized anything before, but then An00bis mentioned it to me once, and yeah, I've been involved in trying to help Get Rekt on the PvP community side for a couple of months now. And yeah, I'm still playing, but I'm also now getting more and more involved in the whole organizing and feedback side of things.
An00bis, question for you. I mean, is Destiny the first game that you've really been involved with in this way, or do you have some sort of tournament, sort of community experience before this?
No, it literally all comes down to Destiny. So I've always been a gamer, but never really committed myself this much to a game until Destiny 1. So there's quite a big crowd of us on Xbox, but we're kind of all a little bit older. So I'm 34, like most of the guys that I played with are kind of all at university with me. So
does this mean I'm old?
I think so, mate.
I suspected I might be old, but shit,
it's just better to accept it, mate. Honestly.
Yeah, fair enough. Glad you told me.
So we kind of figured that we're not going to compete with the hot-fingered 16-year-olds of the world in the competitive side of things. So we wanted to create a LAN tournament that was more of a couch co-op social kind of experience, and just an excuse for the Destiny community to get together and be able to play in a comfortable tournament environment. That's kind of where it was all born from.
Tell me a little bit about like your first event. Like, how did you go about getting everyone, herding all of the community members into one area? I know it's a little smaller over there, but still, it's a tough ask.
Yeah, I mean, I came into it with no prior relationships. That was a difficult part. So Andy mentioned Destiny in the pub. So those guys are good friends of ours over here, and they just run social events for Destiny. And I literally remember waiting outside for the community manager from Activision to steal a cigarette from him and sit down and have a chat about what we're kind of planning for the event. And at that point, it was just kind of scoping out whether there was an audience for it or an appetite for it. And then it was honestly just relentless chasing of people on social media. So I was literally looking for anyone tagging Destiny from the UK, reaching out to everybody individually, trying to pick up who the influencers were in the UK. So Bife actually was one of the first, like the very early supporters. And there's Luke who runs the CryptArch account. And then we kind of started to slowly get introduced to people and started to pick up momentum. But it was crazy. Like just having that many people in a conference room, essentially, in a science museum was absolutely nuts. But arguably, it was probably one of the best atmospheres we've ever had because Destiny 1 was at such a peak at that point. The competitive scene was booming. So it was when Farcog was running tournaments for 500 teams that had no matchmaking and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, so it was a really exciting time. But it kind of, things developed a little bit from there. So everyone was thrown into one bucket initially. So the comp guys that came down. So we had the UK boys, I Am guys come down. So Ozzy and Harry and Lammy and those guys came down. And needless to say, they caused some damage at the event, which kind of meant we had to separate out the comp stuff, which is why we started to look more into the sweat scenes when I started to develop a relationship with Eric and his team over at PvP Legends, and we started to push the EU scene forwards. So kind of fast forwarding to now, we've did our 8th event just before Christmas, and we probably about 4 or 5 months ago started to really think about the Destiny 2 PvP scene again and how we can put together something special for the community this year. So,
all right. Well, Enigma, I guess same question for you. How did you get involved with? I mean, you mentioned running into this guy and getting sucked into this, but tell me, how did you get involved in sort of the public gaming community, and what's your work with Rekt been like?
Well, initially, I was just taking part in the event. So actually, the first Get Rekt event is the only live one I've never been. That I didn't go to. That might have been what contributed to the great atmosphere, to be fair. It could have been. I didn't go to that as back then I was kind of borderline trial Sherpa / looking into getting into the scene kind of thing. And then I've played. I took part in pretty much every event since, whether it's online or a LAN event. And then when the scene kind of petered off a bit, I still continued to go to these events. And it was at every summer, Get Rekt do a big one. And I was at that, and afterwards me and An00bis were having a couple of drinks, and he said to me if I would be interested in doing this, in helping organize, in helping connect with the community kind of thing. And to that, I had a couple of points. I can be sometimes a bit demanding and intense of things, because if I was going to step in, then I wanted to be doing something that the community hadn't seen before, not just making tournaments. I wanted to try and help bring a structure to things that I know the players would want, but hasn't been done. And I was very glad when An00bis agreed and said that he could definitely see that vision for it. So yeah, from there I've been kind of nagging him in his Twitter inbox pretty much every day, saying this is something cool that we can do, and this could happen, and this is what the feedback was. So
we'll talk about that a little bit. Sort of how is the scene evolved as you guys have thrown these events?
Well, first thing is they will the Destiny community as much as anyone, especially PvP side. No one is ever 100% happy, right? So it's just about striking that balance. I feel it's taking what they say and doing as much as we can with it. But sometimes there are voices that need to be heard that sometimes aren't, and we do everything we can to make sure that they get a say as well. And also sometimes there's just things that I guess they do this on the developer side of things as well. There's just things that don't make sense practically, and so sometimes that doesn't work as well.
Yeah, so it's kind of a difficult one, trying to filter through. I don't think noise is necessarily the fair word, but the false objections versus the true objections. So before Christmas time, we actually ran 2 test tournaments. So rather than just starting banning things based on all the Twitter noise, we ran these 2 tournaments, brought teams in from the US and the UK and across the EU to run a tournament with a very minimal rule set and then feed back to us as to what we actually needed to ban. Because I think we've got a very similar philosophy to you, that we want Destiny to be Destiny. We don't want to ban things for the sake of banning them. So to make sure that we took it seriously. And as Enigma said, that the guys on Twitter aren't the only voice. We've got Facebook groups. We've got quite a big Instagram community. We've got people that just don't want to be speaking out in public about this stuff. So we wanted to give them a real way of feeling. I can
see why.
Yeah. Some of them are terrifying. And we've had to take action on that kind of stuff. Like some of the behavior genuinely puts people off from joining in the tournament. So we've had to take some of the guys aside and say, look, you're hindering our own progress here by doing that. So I think they're starting to see what we're trying to achieve now, and behaviors are starting to change, which is great. It's just required a little bit of a hard stance to get them working alongside us to achieve what we want to achieve. But the result, I mean, the rule set we've come to is, compared to some of the other organizations out there, is definitely more trimmed down in that we haven't banned as many things as they have. just because the problems that you see maybe in the competitive Crucible, you just don't see in Sweats because the play style is completely different. So it's been interesting to see all that kind of stuff come together. And then when we start to pull the tournaments together for January and onwards, we'll start to gather feedback again from those and evolve the rule set as the metas change and weapons like Jotun come into the arena and start wreaking havoc. Saw some of Gig's clips of that earlier, so that's terrifying me a little bit. I'm sure we'll get, oh my God, you have to ban this all over Twitter tomorrow. But so it's been good to put a process in place, and we haven't really had the resource to be able to do that. And there's another chap called Etsky. He's kind of our wizard behind the scenes. He does a lot of our technical work, and he's done a lot of the spreadsheets and things to be able to pull this together and help us with stats and pull the stream together. So it's a really nice broadcast. And I know you guys know Bennett and Xander, who've become a bit of a name in the Destiny community. And we know those guys pretty well, so they're going to be along with us for the ride as well, which is going to be fantastic. So
That's awesome.
So I think a lot of the Destiny tournaments I've seen, with the exception of, some of the events they've put together for Guardian Con and places like that, is that you're throwing tournaments, but they all have an in-person component, right? You've got a conference room, you're having a LAN party. Talk about how an environment like that can be different from just, your sort of standard weekend Twitch tournament.
It's extremely positive, actually. I mean, the behavior that these guys show online is nowhere near what you get when you see them live. It's like a massive contrast. When you meet them in person, you can read into that what you will. But the conversations that you can have with them in person and the way that they act towards each other, it's really positive in a live environment. And when you see these guys kind of shouting across the desks at each other, it's really entertaining for the casual and social guys that are there to kind of watch these guys display their skill. So we're looking forward to trying to get more of these guys into a room together. So we probably won't do that until August. So the plan is to run the monthly tournaments essentially to gather seed points, but I'll let Enigma talk about that more because that's his system that he concepted for that. But the idea hopefully then is to run the finals on a proper esports stage at one of the UK's biggest gaming events. So Destiny actually led me into a pretty big career change. So I used to work in the medical industry, but now I head up the marketing team for Belong Gaming Arenas in the UK, which are a massive grassroots esports movement, essentially. And as part of that organization, there's an event called Insomnia. So we're doing our best to try and get Destiny players on the stage at Insomnia, where there's 70,000 people, which would be pretty insane if we can make it happen. So yeah,
I think there's something special about this. It being a little bit tighter and like more localized in the UK, because everyone's everywhere and it's hard to get like everyone in one place more often than just Guardian Con. So it's nice to see like this, like, I don't know, it feels like more of like a neighborhood type community to me.
It really is. And a lot of these guys that come to our events, some of them don't even play Destiny anymore. They just come to kind of see the Get Rekt family and hang out and come for drinks and see what's going on in the community. So the competitive side has taken a hit. So we used to, I say the first events for Destiny 1, we'd have like 28 to sort of 30 teams that would be coming in to compete. Whereas we've really struggled to even fill kind of 8 to 12 at the recent ones. And part of that's the PS4 and PC split as well. We've had to make some pretty hard decisions on a direction with that. But no, we're excited. And Andy's done some phenomenal work with the PvP community. So Andy's background with Animosity Esports means he's got quite a few links with esports organizations and knows the conversations to be having. So we've got some relatively big esports orgs that are starting to back players and bring teams in now, which is the first time we've ever seen that in the UK. So that's testament to Andy's work for sure.
That's interesting. I mean, I think, there's a long-standing refrain that, Destiny's not cut out for real esports. There's, too many variables. There's the grind, yada, yada. As you guys have tried to take a game like Destiny that's got a lot of possibilities, I mean, there's a lot of ways that you could play it in a tournament scene and try and build something that is structured. It makes sense. There's good competition. You're kind of bringing out the best gameplay. What does it take to sort of take the big world of possibilities that's the Crucible and carve that down into a vision where it feels like esports?
I mean, it is what we make it. I think the rule sets are obviously the main sticking point, and just the sheer variety of weapons in the Crucible is always going to be a discussion point for us. But if you think about it compared to the other esports, it's only because the players take it seriously that it gets to that point. I mean, they all have their own rule sets. The publishers take it seriously, which is probably the main difference with Destiny 2 is that the competitive scene isn't necessarily supported in the same way as something like Overwatch or Call of Duty would be, for example. But the opportunity is certainly there. I mean, we're seeing some quite big numbers even from streams for test tournaments. So the audience clearly exists, and that's all you need for an esport to flourish. So we're not concerned about it. Like the direction's only up. We've been very lucky to have a few community members come forward and support us with the prize pool. So we've got over £4,000 in the prize pool. So conversion wise, I think that's about $1 million, isn't it? I think.
Sounds about right.
A very heavy prize pool. Yeah.
So these guys are coming out of the woodwork now to support us. So having a £4,000 prize pool was insane for something that's not considered a pro esport, and we can only see that growing, and that gives us a great basis to then go and have conversations with sponsors and esports as it is at the moment. Like every brand is trying to find a reason to work in esports, no matter what the games, because the audience is such an awesome demographic. It's a premium spending 18 to 24 demographic. So
I wonder if I know the Activision split is a little tougher for you guys, but I wonder if Bungie was being held back in any way for esports in particular. Who, I mean, we can't know the ins and outs of it all, but I'd be interested to see what approach they take to it when they're on their own.
Yeah, absolutely. Something I was talking to Andy about before we started the call actually was how it was going to affect things like servers. Because obviously that's a big budget decision to not have dedicated servers. And maybe that's been part of the conversation. Because obviously at the moment, most of the PC stuff's hosted by Blizzard. So that's going to have to go somewhere. So it'd be interesting to see how they tackle that moving forward and if there's any improvements that they can make.
Yeah, I guess we're going to find out now what is Activision's fault and what is Bungie's fault, and that's going to be very interesting.
That's such a PvP community way of looking at it.
Yeah, that's exactly the way the PvP community, because like my timeline, I mean, I missed the announcement yesterday actually. It was only in a group chat that I actually ended up seeing anything, and then I looked on my timeline, and the entire community was basically, well, now we're going to see whether it's Bungie giving us the PvP things that we've been getting or Activision. And so from a PvP community, I feel like that's probably the interesting point. Me personally, I feel like people should probably like just hold their breath for a second. Like there was a lot of extreme excitement yesterday, as much as I'd love to sit here and be like, oh, well, Bungie have control, so it's going to be the most amazing thing ever. I don't think anything will change for a little while at least.
Because they just flip the big switch that says Activision left and turns on.
Yeah, like we go from like the depths of hell to the daydreams of whatever we're supposed to be going to. I think the community's reaction was mental, but
I think if you look at it on a like development schedule, like how far out they're developing things, I would say whatever they were developing, yesterday, that's probably the last bit that will be representative of this relationship, and then going forward. And we know that they're developing as far out as, September-ish.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so it's whenever that cutoff point is. If it's September, then I guess year 3 will be when we see the fruits of Bungie only labor, or will it be Destiny 3? We, don't know yet.
I'm so glad I'm not in charge of any of that stuff. I saw this and I'm like, I'm not even going to look into it. This stresses me out.
Well, I just hope it's not like Brexit. That's my concern. Like,
so
people just get so pissed off. They just want it a big change, and it takes like 3 years to try and achieve the separation. I just hope it doesn't go in that direction. And they get to the end of it and be like, oh shit, what did we do? But we'll see.
Well, that's good. Talk a bit more about Brexit.
Please, no.
I'll just see my followers on Twitter go down like exponentially for the next 2 weeks.
I was gonna say I do want to get into like the actual nitty gritty and talk about Destiny itself right now. We mentioned that the meta changes. You guys react to that, and obviously you have to, do the right amount of testing to decide. But what do you guys feel about the rule sets you have at the moment? What's gone into them? Like, what kind of decisions have been happening lately based on all of the meta changes and the additions to the game, say since Forsaken?
It's a weird one because Destiny 1, we very much had like a very linear meta. Mm-hmm. It was pretty much 4 hand cannons on 4 hand cannons with shotguns. You had 2, if not 3 warlocks because they were insane. And it was very much, that was the same thing over and over and over. We're not trying to... the decision making that we're taking with this rule set is not to like forcibly change that, but just to give people other viable options. Still give Destiny its soul, if you will. We definitely don't want to be sitting here and being like, oh, well, you're not allowed to use that weapon. You're not allowed to use that weapon. You can only use A, B, and C. You must use one of C, because we just feel like that then forces not only the competitive players into little pockets where they don't like to be, but anyone who could possibly look to come into the scene just won't get it. They won't understand, wait a minute, I can't use an auto rifle. Well, why not? Like, some weapons do need banning. That is outright. Telesto, Wave Splitter, whoever came up with those weapons, I'd love to have a chat with them. But like we take the feedback that players give us, and we apply a logical sense to it. We apply, if people are saying, oh, players must use a sniper rifle. They mustn't have to use a sniper rifle. That isn't a thing. You don't force people to use sniper rifles. You just encourage them. You say, look, this option is here for you. There are ways in which you can definitely make that a viable play style, but don't feel like you either have to or you're not allowed to, kind of thing. When it comes to armor pieces, again, we get calls for bans for a lot of things, and that probably goes back to the Destiny 1 side of things, when anything at all that was performance enhancing in the slightest was banned. Mods, stuff like that. What we try and do is take a look at what the old hardcore community want, and also try and think, okay, well, they want this, but what do other people also want? We want to try and find a nice blend in there that fits everybody.
I'm curious. I mean, so we're talking about sweats, right? So there's no power weapons. You don't have that kind of snowball effect. But the other, explicit bans here, and it's not a lot. I can count them on 2 hands. Telesto, grenade launchers, Wave Splitter, and then for the armor pieces, Ursa, Shards of Galanor, One-Eyed Mask, Gweissen Vest, and Gemini Jesters. I'm curious what it takes to really merit a ban. And for some of these, I go like, well, yeah, sure, that's obvious. But I imagine you have to be a little bit more rigorous about it. Do you have some sort of criteria or a threshold you have to cross to say, okay, this simply cannot be in the game, or, it's not a good rule set. It's not fun. It's not fair.
I think the amount of community feedback is always the heaviest factor. If people are absolutely outraged and there's no counterpoints to that really, then that would be really strong. So for example, let's take One-Eyed Mask. One-Eyed Mask is an armor piece. It is a reward essentially for being hurt. It's a reward for performing badly. You get hit by something, and then you can track where an enemy is. Movement at a top tier level is one of the biggest components of a player's game. If you're able to just track that through walls, you gain a damage buff, etc. That then becomes a little game breaking. It can encourage passive play styles and so on, which is definitely not what we want to see at that level. Obviously, Shards of Galanor and Ursa, until they get rained down a bit, that's probably obvious to most people. You don't want super rolling and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'd say the amount of on a general rule, we wouldn't have like a criteria, but the amount of community feedback plus does this affect the game in a particularly positive and negative way? So does it, encourage people to rely solely on this item in order to perform well? Would probably be a really strong point.
There's some things in there that aren't banned. So we get a little bit of kind of anecdotal feedback on things like syntheseps, but in reality, we just don't see the problems in tournaments, which is why we ran the test tourneys. And until those kind of things rise to the top as a problem, there's not really a concern on our side about those things. And I think something else from the rule set that we've tried to instill is variety. So I think the problem with Destiny 1 is the rule sets really push towards individual balance. So a hunter had to be the same as a titan, had to be the same as a warlock, which didn't really make much sense to us. If you look at any other kind of big esports, a lot of it's around team composition. Like you look at something like Overwatch, it doesn't matter about the individual power of a character, it's how all those perform together and the synergies. And that's what we kind of wanted to start seeing with Destiny 2. So we jumped into a chat with Kevin Yanes and Ham Slamrick, just to see what they were comfortable with us doing. So they were commenting saying, yeah, we don't want to see lots of bans, but we're happy to see variety. So that's when we started saying, okay, well, we'll allow exotics, but we won't allow duplicates of those exotics. We'll allow certain subclasses, but we won't allow duplicates of those, just so people started to think how these things would work together. And so we started seeing different combinations, and we weren't seeing just 3 of the same exotic weapon, especially when it was the Graviton and Vigilance meta on PlayStation. Would have been a pretty bland universe if we'd allowed them to have 4 of the same weapon, for example. So,
how do things make it off of a ban list?
Good question. I don't think we've had that yet.
We haven't got that far, no.
But I think that would require a sandbox change, right? And we get a sandbox change, once every 4 years? So I guess we're just waiting on what changes next. Because if, for example, they brought out a change and Shards of Galanor is capped at 10% of super return, then there's no reason to ban Shards of Galanor anymore. So yeah, I guess a sandbox change or a change in the community's attitude, maybe.
That makes sense.
Someone told me that the CEO of Activision made Shards of Galanor, so...
Was that the catalyst of the decision?
Yeah.
As a hunter main, I love them. I just wish my RNG would give them to me, for God's sake.
Always the problem with this game, huh?
I mean, I wonder about that. We've had a real retuning of exotic drop rates, so it's just not assumed that, within a month or so, everyone's going to have everything. How do you... for a game like Destiny, and you want to, create a level playing field, you want to make sure that you've got lots of teams competing. How do you sort of account for the fact that some people are going to have an account with everything unlocked and your Godroll Dust Rock and, all the best gear versus somebody who's maybe, an Xbox main who's trying to figure out a way to play on PS4 for this tournament? How do you account for that, or has that been an issue for you?
It hasn't been so far. I think the amount these guys play at the highest level, I mean, they're probably in the top kind of 1% in terms of time in the game. So, and I think with the way the meta is at the moment, with things like Not Forgotten being the sort of the main weapon these guys use, being a skill based and something you can chase through a quest rather than RNG, it's been less of a problem. But you see it in other esports too. So a lot of FIFA tournaments, for example, use FIFA Ultimate Team, and that's kind of based on RNG and what you're willing to buy in terms of card packs and all that kind of stuff. So it's not like it's unique to Destiny. It does exist outside of that. But we'll keep an eye on it. I mean, if there's ever anything that came to light that was problematic, I think Jotun probably would have been one of those, but I'd see us probably moving that out for the January tournament just because of the clips we've seen. We need to do some proper research on that, but it's not actually come up in any of the feedback. So
I think to continue on to your point, is that as a player, if I was to put anything on my little wish list, it would be something that has been in first-person shooters for a long time now, which is just a genuine custom match where we can load in, you can pick your class. Like you can pick, like, okay, the weapons wouldn't be available to you in quick play or competitive, but you could go in and pick any class and armor perk or weapon perk combination. That would make things a lot better to balance, because there are always the conversations about, oh, well, such a body's dust rock drop better than such a body's dust rock. And it's like, unfortunately, that's the way Destiny is, and we have to find the balance in the way the game plays. But if there was something that I would scream from the rooftops, it would be the desire for something where players spawn in, they make their class, and they go on and they pick their dust rock, and then they're like, okay, well, I want field choke on it. So
what sort of stuff are you like? You mentioned combinations and trying to create more of a team building vibe. Like, what sort of combinations are you seeing? Are you seeing a lot of variety? Are you seeing anything interesting that's popping up from these teams?
Do you want to take that, Andy?
Yeah. So do you mean in terms of like the composition?
Yeah, composition, loadouts, all of it. Like, is there anything like you're seeing that someone's doing like super interesting and doing it well?
So the fact that we do objective modes in particular, and we've like prioritized objective modes, tends to give us a bit of variety, actually. So we get, I mean, your primary at the minute is always going to be Not Forgotten. In the hands of a skilled player, that thing is the quickest, most effective route of dropping an opposing player. But secondaries, okay, a lot of it is shotguns, but for example, we play Countdown with no revives. So we have, a sniper getting a pick on that, getting a kill. That is very valuable. If you can get a kill long range, early engagement, that's very valuable. We have survival in there, which is, every life counts. If you're playing lanes and you take picks with that sniper rifle, it's important. Which I feel other organizers might not get that. They might not get people taking that risk because it's not deemed to be worth really running a sniper rifle in a lot of scenarios. In terms of composition, Warlocks are dominant. They currently are. Bungie love Warlocks, right? They have the best supers. They have great powers. They have, they are really nice. It tends to be a mix. I'd say probably 50% of it is Warlocks, probably another 35% Hunters, 15% Titans. Titans tend to be very specialists. Of the Titans I know, they're very, very strong, but they're few and far between.
Do you think that that's just because, if you're playing Titan, you're generally playing, fairly aggressively, high risk, high reward, and that's, you find teams want to play a little bit more conservatively, where they have a dodge, they have a rift, they have something that's going to, stay alive in a no revive mode?
Yeah, definitely. For example, Hunters have, like, a lot of players at the higher level argue that Hunters don't have very much, but one thing they do have is a movement, and it's a natural style of moving that is very versatile, very good for a shotgun. You have a movement perk that effectively allows you to not only use it offensively, your role, but you can also use it if you put yourself in a bad position, so you can counter a mistake, if you will. Rifts are always going to be fantastic, especially for objective modes. You pop one of those down on a flag. Whereas Titans, they have their shields, but honestly, the Titans, the people that I can think of from the top of my head, their playstyle is incredibly aggressive. They shotgun and punch everything. I saw a graphic yesterday, which was Titan playstyle. Is it a phalanx? Yes. Punch it. No. Punch it. And that is that doesn't change in PvP. They shotgun and punch everything. And if you have a Titan in your team, you more than likely need to have the teammates who are willing to run in with you at breakneck speeds.
Yep. Well, you mentioned something kind of offhandedly there that I think is worth talking about. The game modes that you use in your rule set are Supremacy, Control, Countdown, and Survival. And that's interesting because I guess normally when I think of sweats, I think of Clash, right? Or, maybe, potentially Survival, something like that is sort of the least sort of objective focused out of, I guess you play for power Never mind. Sweats. Andrew, cut that out. Make me something fun. Tell me a little bit about this, though. What went into the decision to play for objectives, and how do you deal with, the pacing of having something like a countdown match where it can sort of tend to be kind of a static sort of game mode?
So if you look at pretty much any first-person shooter esport ever, in current times or in history, whether it be console or PC, there is an objective to play. I'm definitely going to upset quite a few people when I say outright that Clash is not competitive. It's team deathmatch. It's not a top tier game mode. There is, Call of Duty don't play team deathmatch. CSGO don't play team deathmatch. There is so much more skill involved in playing not only the ability to shoot each other, but the ability to play an objective. When is it smart to shoot each other? Should I move into different areas of the map to shoot each other? There's so much more skill involved in the frantic pacing of an objective mode if you're playing one. Would we like Bungie to perhaps give us more objective modes and a bit more variety? Yes, definitely. But we work with what we've got, and Clash can lead to some extremely passive playstyles, which is just not what we want to see. I was watching a tournament probably 2 weeks ago, and it was in the final, and both teams spent about 30 seconds just stood waiting for the other team to move because they were in a strong position, and if they advanced, they would be in a weaker position. If there's an objective to play for, the teams have to go and play for that. They can't just stand there for 30 seconds emoting at a corner, hoping that the other team give up their spot first. As well, if you take the lead, teams tend to back off to the back of the map, which is, again, not what we want to see. So objective modes are, for me, and people who are in other esports tend to agree with this statement, considerably more skillful than just I can shoot the other guy.
That's interesting. Well, I guess I wonder, kind of follow-up question. You've watched a lot of tournaments now. Beyond just the pure mechanical skill of moving and shooting well, are there any sort of behaviors or philosophies or sort of strategies that you see over and over in those teams that are winning consistently?
Definitely the Destiny 2 in particular definitely relies very heavily on teamwork, more so than Destiny 1, purely because a lot of the gunfights can be you're taking people on 2v2 rather than 1v1, if you will. There's a lot now. You'll hear a lot more nowadays in terms of like, challenge this with me. So you get, you need your communication, your angles and stuff to be on point. And the top teams do that very, very well. Certain teams out there like Had to Be Us, for example, you never feel like you're in a 1v1 gunfight. You always feel like if you were ever in a 1v1 gunfight, there is another player immediately upon you. So teamwork is huge at this level. Communication, general map awareness. I can't tell you how many times I've picked up, oh, wait, you can play that lane just by watching a tournament and playing, one of these top teams. We were scrimming against a team the other day where someone was stood on a box that I didn't even know existed. I've played the game for 2 years. I didn't even know it was a thing. So, yeah, it was pretty... map awareness tends to come in pretty hard in Destiny. To be fair, probably in any esport, but in particular in Destiny.
I just love that idea of never being in a 1v1, that you're probably doing something wrong. And that probably applies to more game modes than just, a competitive situation. That's a good one. I'm gonna think about that.
Yeah. Are you thinking about your comp, or is that...
Just in general, right? Like if I'm ever charging off and I don't see any teammates on my radar, probably a bad sign. Probably something bad's going to happen in like 10 seconds.
If your teammates are screaming, "Birds over here, over here."
Yeah, I suppose at the top, like, it's a lot about mentality. Like if you're spawning up, and we call it bleeding. So if you're spawning up and running in, and you're running into a 1v3, 1v4 gunfight, or you spawn up, your teammates in a 1v3, 1v4 gunfight, probably not very wise to run in and help him. As much as that sounds a bit harsh, all you're going to do is more than likely the teammate will die as you arrive or as you're on the way. You arrive, you die, your teammates are then in the 2v4. It's things like that. It's things like having the mentality to stay calm, realize when is a smart time to push, realize when it isn't, and play that effectively.
So, An00bis, going into 2019, it's a new year. You've done a lot of these events so far. What would you say are the biggest things you've learned from this entire experience?
Never say no to help would probably be the biggest one. I think inevitably when you develop something that's your baby and you've kind of developed a brand behind it and all that kind of stuff, you can be quite protective. And I think over the time, I've definitely become a little bit more open to support, and that's made everything go from strength to strength. So Andy's been phenomenal. Etsky, who's been doing the technical stuff behind the scenes, that man's an absolute wizard. We have a great event team. So we have 4 or 5 volunteers that are there every single event. Don't ask us for anything. Just come run the tournaments with us. It's an incredible team. And they don't ask for anything. They're just extremely supportive. From the event side of things, the only thing that really gets us is technical stuff. So PlayStation Network's hurt us a few times, and it's just, it's really working out how you get around those situations in a live environment. And I think we're quite lucky to have a very understanding community. And I think because there aren't 100 events going on every year, and this is probably the only one they'll come to in the UK, they do give us a lot more leeway than we probably should have. But we do really want to tighten that up, because if we were to get onto an esports stage in August time, we want to make sure that everyone's fully confident in what we're doing, know that they can concentrate on their game and they don't have to worry about anything from a logistics standpoint and all that kind of stuff. But our calendar is going to be extremely busy this year. So we've got tournaments every single month, essentially, apart from in July, running up to August, with prize pools attached every single month. So we had another investor come forward yesterday. So our monthly prize pools are going to go up as well, which is fantastic news. So for us, it's just going to be making sure we've got constant communication, like we're on top of rule changes, we're getting feedback regularly. I'm just making sure the guys that are really fully invested in what we're doing are happy and pushing forwards with us. And hopefully we can get some sponsor partners on board as we go from a peripheral standpoint, and hopefully get some prizes for the guys in August and that kind of stuff. So,
tournament every month. That's amazing. That's a lot of work.
Yeah. So Andy came to me with that proposal and I was like, yes, question mark. Because we're all volunteers, right? We do this outside of work. Yeah. And so I do this all day now and then come home and then do all this for Destiny too. So it's kind of a 12-hour process of marketing esports events at the moment, which is great for me, like from a learning process perspective. But it's going to be pretty relentless. So it's the last weekend of every month, apart from July, that we'll be running a full tournament. So Andy's concepted the design for this, and it's ingenious, really. So it rewards the individual players as well as the teams. People develop seeding points as they go throughout the tournament, and then we have had a little bit of feedback about excluding US players to an extent, but obviously when we've got a big LAN tournament to target, and our target is to try and get as many people to that as possible, we kind of have to make sure that everyone that's involved can get to that. So you can have US players. There's just a limitation to say that you have to have a certain number of EU players, just to make sure that LAN tournament at the end is going to be as just to make sure the LAN tournament's going to be as viable and accessible as possible. So yeah, exciting.
I don't know, but I guess. Well, all right, 2-part question. First part is the general one. For our listeners who are interested in playing in a tournament, who have never played in one before, maybe they've got a group that they play with, but maybe, not a real strong, 4-person team. If you wanted to give some advice for getting started there, how do you put that first team together? What should you be working on? What are the mistakes that new teams make? How do you take that first step into this world?
One for you, Andy, I think.
Yeah, just trying to. So in terms of initially getting involved, Rekt have a dedicated Discord where players can go and have started to go, and you can go in there, get your sweats roll, and then ask for scrims or sweats practice games in the chat. I would fully encourage absolutely anyone who wants to get involved to get into the Discord and get involved with people on Twitter. 1,000,000% be tweeting out that you want to be doing sweats and you want to be practicing. Even put on the tweet or on the Discord that you are a new team. Teams at the minute, the scene seems to be very happy to welcome anyone in. Everyone's very aware that we need to rebuild things, and especially with everything that's going on and coming up, everyone's very happy to see new faces. So if you want to get involved, 1,000,000% either message the Get Rekt main account on Twitter, or that's probably the best way of doing it rather than checking through the tweets. As much as I think the pinned one is the Discord, I'd message the Twitter and we can give you all the information about getting involved that way. And what was the second part to your question? Sorry.
Yeah, well, you sort of answered it. If people want to get involved with Get Rekt specifically, so they want to watch the tournaments, they want to learn more about you guys, they want to see what you've got planned for 2019. Where do they go? Where do they start?
Yeah, so away from the Discord stuff and Twitter as well, we also have a website which An00bis it's done, which is incredibly snazzy actually. But we have on there everything from, well, you don't get many compliments, so I thought I'd give you that one. We have on there, we put up, the kind of things people will want to know, whether that be players, viewers. We obviously have the live stream, which is broadcast at GetRekt_live. Have I got that right this time? I get that wrong so often.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Please tell me that's the right Twitch.
That's right.
I think that's the right Twitch.
It's pretty worth them. So the website's getrekt.co. So interesting story about that. I thought .co was like a cool, hip way of ending your website a little bit differently. Turns out it's the country suffix for Colombia. So we're not trying to sell you drugs. We just literally thought we were being cool. But yeah, you can find everything on there. So the roadmap's on there for the season, the rule set's on there and be updated. You can, if you go to the blog, you can see how the rule set's developed. So the articles are all chronological on there, so you can see how things have been changing. And then if you, as Andy said, if you want to get in touch with us directly, just ping us a message on Twitter and we'll get back to you quickly.
I think you're cool.
Thanks, man.
You got it.
Where exactly can people find each of you individually out there on the Twitter and such?
So you can find me at An00bis Gaming. So the O's or zeros, which was an error that goes back to an Xbox gamer tag limitation.
Hello, 2004. They want the Twitter app back.
Oh man, I get called An00bis half the time because I tried to, when I started on PlayStation, I couldn't get An00bis for whatever reason. But then some games like Overwatch that actually capitalize your name, so it looks like An00bis on most of the PlayStation games.
It's got a ring to it.
And I am Enigma. But if you just search for Enigma and you're involved in the Destiny community, it's likely I'll come up. Thankfully, I think I'm the only Enigma. I think.
Well, once upon a time, the three of us and the rest of the Crucible Radio team organized a single day online sparrow racing tournament, and it was very hard. So I have a ton of respect for what you guys do day in, day out, and to put on all these events and to get so many people involved and have a place to go hang out and have fun is really, really cool. So I have a ton of respect for what you guys do. That's amazing.
No, thank you, man. Thanks for inviting us. I've been listening to you guys for a long time, so it's been great to be able to chew the fat with you guys a little bit.
Yeah. Hear that, birds? We're old. We've been around a long time.
Yeah. Wow.
Accept it.
Had a good run. Long overdue. Thanks so much for coming on the show. And let's have a big 2019.
Cool. Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that.
Yes.
USA.
Contrary to popular belief, we actually do chant that at every
Constantly.
get-together.
I did actually witness it at a bar in Philadelphia once.
Oh, God.
Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, Philly, that checks out.
Right. I'm surprised they didn't do the Eagles chant too. Did they?
No, it's just the USA one.
You got lucky. Here it is, the end of the show. Outro with Bones from Bonesville.
Welcome to Bone Town and neighborhood of Bonesville. Real talk, though, guys, I did drink coffee before doing this episode, and I haven't done that in a very long time. Usually, if I'm drinking anything, it's alcohol, which, chills me out. But I hope I can fall asleep on that Casper mattress tonight, because I'm wired.
I can fall asleep no matter what, even after coffee.
Not true for me.
Yeah, not for me either.
The Bruce Banner. The Bruce Banner of sleeping. It's my trick. I'm always
Dear listeners, have you ever wondered what we're like at 9 a.m? It's pretty weird. And you can hear about it on Real World Crucible Radio. Go check it out, patreon.com/Crucible Radio. That was a fun episode.
I legit slept through half of that podcast.
Bones was significantly late to it, which I think is a very telling turn of events. But hey, we got a free episode up there right now for you to go check out. So
also, Birds, what is at the top of your Twitter?
Thank you. Well, what have I retweeted recently? Let's see.
The pinned item.
I'm thinking about resetting my.
Oh God.
I was thinking about resetting my pinned tweet to just be a quote tweet of that latest drill tweet that says "getting brain damage from pissing myself off." But until then, it is, of course, a wonderful spreadsheet that's got every subclass perk, every armor perk, where they drop, how it works. It's just really fucking convenient when you're trying to figure out what that next build is or what piece of armor you should toss. Go to twitter.com/birds. Go click on the link. I don't want to do these anymore. Am I obligated to plug this fucking spreadsheet?
Yeah.
The people who want to see the spreadsheet at this point have probably seen the spreadsheet at this point. But
someone literally asked me where my spreadsheet was in the Discord.
Hey,
and
Birds, put a link to the Patreon on the spreadsheet.
Ooh, yeah, that viral marketing. Slip it in there. People will love that.
A lapse funnel. Gotta get people into the funnel.
The funnel?
Yeah.
I'm not
into the
funnel.
channel.
The channel. I don't want to be in the channel. All right. Is this episode dying of its own volition, or are we gonna kill this one properly?
It's a proper killing.
I feel like killing it was the intro. Where I killed it.
I feel like I'm always killing it.
I actually wanted to introduce a new bit to the show, specifically to the outro, where after all is said and done, we've done our plugs.
Is the new bit An00bis' brother?
That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. No, my new bit is I poorly play electric blues guitar at very high volume, and then I yell, "Boomer lives!" It's pretty funny, you guys.
Hey, Andrew, cut him off before that happens, please.
Yeah.
All right, I'm plugging it in.
I'm hitting stop.
I'm plugging it in.
Goodbye.
Stop.
I don't have to be here anymore.
Goodbye.
I'm going to find a pick. I've almost found a pick. Here we go. Here we go. Woo! Boomer lives! I think we got something here.
What's up, everyone? Bones here. Do you like podcasts? Do you like chill conversation? Well, me and my co-host Swain and Birds put out a bonus podcast every month on Patreon. If you want to check it out and be a part of more awesome stuff, head over to patreon.com/Crucible Radio and join the squad. See you there.